Many seasons of Monster Energy AMA Supercross start out crazy, and this year is no exception. There's usually some obscure stat you can even put together to prove how wild it is, and we have one this year. Thanks to our statistician Mitch Kendra, we have learned that only 3 seasons in the 50-plus year history of Supercross have started with 2 completely different podiums in the first 2 rounds, meaning the riders who were on the podium in round 1, none of them were on the podium at round 2, and the riders on the podium in round 2, none of them were on the podium at round 1. Yes, it's only happened 3 times, 1992, 2021, and now. How did this happen? Well, we'll run you through the ups and downs of all the contenders in the 450s and sprinkle a little 250 information in here. Start with the 450 class. Everyone knows that Anaheim 1 winner Chase Sexton had his problems at round 2 in San Diego. The main problem being a first lap crash, which put him in last place. He rallied back to finish 6th, but it could have been much worse than that. Sexton did not jump the Supercross triple on lap 1, and it took an incredible mid-air maneuver from Dylan Ferrandis to prevent Sexton from getting landed on. That is scary. That could have been catastrophic. Consider all that, and 6th is actually good for Sexton. Second out round 1 was Ken Roczen. Roczen is probably the closest to pulling off podiums in the first 2 rounds. He ended up a close 4th, just missed getting Cooper Webb for the 3rd place spot. And here's the thing. Had Roczen finished 3rd, he'd be tied for the points lead and carrying the red plate this weekend.
When I ran it in on him, I needed to be like a half a bike length closer to make him aware that I'm in there, and I could have made it stick. But then you're running the risk, most of the time, somebody, if he doesn't really know that you're right there or going for it, and he's cutting down, you risk both of you guys going down because all of his weight falls onto you. You know what I mean? So we did touch for a quick second, but I tried. I couldn't make it happen. I need to make moves like that stick to be able to go.
2 races, 3rd in the points, I think, couple points out. It's going well.
Yeah, my first thing, and I don't know what my head went, was I asked Billy, I'm like, who has a red plate?
Yeah.
I really just wanted to see a red plate on my bike.
Yeah.
That would be.
I thought you had it too, to be honest. I think I'm somewhere in the race. I was doing the math.
I think I had to get Cooper to be able to be tied with Eli, and I don't know if we would both run the red plate, right? Yeah, that'd be kind of cool. But I needed Cooper for that. I really tried for it though.
Cooper Webb himself nearly has 2 podiums. He was 4th at round 1, and that was close. And then just narrowly held off Roczen for 3rd at round 2. We'll have more on Webb in a bit, but let's go back to the Anaheim 1 podium. 3rd in that race was Jason Anderson, and then he was 13th at round 2. What happened? Kawasaki press release on Monday morning explained he was sick, as were many riders. Here's Anderson, quote, I finished 3rd in my heat race, which was better than I expected since I'm under the weather. I did not have a great start, and then had some other issues in the main event. I've been sick this week, and it got to me by the end of the night. My energy was fading, and it showed the last couple laps in the main. At one point, Anderson ran as high as 7th before drifting back to that 13th place finish. Okay, so those are the 3 Anaheim 1 podium riders. Let's look at the San Diego podium finish. Well, everyone knows what happened to Eli Tomac. He won round 2. Maybe could have won round 1, but he went down while leading at Anaheim and came all the way back from last to 5th. That's his story. As for Jet Lawrence, we covered the opening round struggles for the Hondas at round 1 quite a bit last week. Jet actually said longer gearing helped quite a bit improve the starts from Anaheim 1 to round 2. They made changes to the suspension, even the handlebars, much better at round 2. That was an epic battle between he and Tomac. So that's 1 podium for last year's champion. And then 3rd was Webb, as mentioned. Let's get into his season. Yes, he ended up 16 seconds behind Tomac and Lawrence at the end, and this is the race he led at the halfway mark. But his 4-3 finishes are much better than finishing 6-11 at the first 2 rounds last year, and he's been dealing with some issues, which he explained a bit in the press conference. You mentioned being sick on the podium. Do we also hear, were you dealing with something nagging in the offseason? Are you actually happy? Maybe even exceeding expectations, considering some of the stuff you've been up against?
Yeah, I mean, it's racing, right? You're always dealing with something. I feel like the West Coast always gets the best of me every time I'm out here. It's something in the air or something, but yeah, it's yeah. I mean, you're correct. We had a up and down off season, but that's dirt bike racing, and you're dealing with things. So I'm extremely happy. I have always said it, but if I can leave the West Coast in the mix, that's always the goal. And like you said, I'm extremely happy with how things are going right now.
And of course, The beginning of the season not only brings you weirdo stats, but a deep field. Other riders are contenders still for podiums. Malcolm Stewart, a great bounce back, for example. Huge crash in his Anaheim 1 heat, and then came back to finish a solid 7th over the weekend in San Diego. So we'll see how it turns out at round 3. We go to the 250 class now. The headline there, Juju Beaumer, unbelievable improvement from a year ago. The sophomore pro now leads the championship with 2-1 finishes, and shout out to him for riding like a veteran, waiting to the halfway point of the race to really put the attack on rookie Cole Davies, and then pulling away to win the race. Perhaps the other big story is Hayden Deegan, who was the preseason favorite, especially when you consider last year's West Coast champion, RJ Hampshire, not racing west with injury. Last year's West Coast contender, Levi Kitchen, out with illness. That made Deegan a favorite. Now he'll have to deal with Beaumer. We also know what happened to the round 1 winner in a wild series of events that we can't recall ever happening before. Joe Shimoda, 2 broken fingers for the Anaheim 1 winner after getting hit in the hand by a pit board. In practice, he still gutted out 7th, but we don't know his status going forward. But Deegan has his own problems. Bad starts in the 2 races, and he did not rage through the pack at San Diego like we saw him do in a lot of races in Pro Motocross and SMX last year, and he's talking about arm pump now.
The boys rode good today. It was a little restricted. Got to work on this arm pump. It's something I really struggled with, but we'll figure it out. It's nothing, no hurdle we've not had to figure out before. So, we'll figure it out, but besides that, we'll pick it up.
Jordan Smith actually has finished on the podium in the first 2 races. He was able to win a late race duel with rider DeFrancesco to get 3rd at Anaheim 1, and then rode well, solid at San Diego, but he also thinks he can pick it up. This is the first time the Triumph team has ever raced West Coast Supercross. They're sorting through the motorcycle right now.
Like you said, it's the first time for this bike being on these West Coast tracks and stuff, and even though it was pretty rutted, it was like really, really hard and slick base tonight. I think that they almost overwatered the track, and then that moisture came up in the nitro. Like, it never got dried out. So it wasn't quite what I was expecting. But, we're still collecting data. We made a big change on the bike from last week to this week of just like kind of the balance of it. And not that we went too far, but I think that we could kind of meet in the middle in some areas of it and really dial it in. So it's been fun. I enjoy the process of trying to get it dialed in.
And that really is what makes the early round races so interesting. There's a lot of guessing on bike setup. There's the general inconsistency of racing, which leads to huge swings in points when you have a small sample size. And for some reason, the winter races, well, there's often illness running through the pits, and this year is no different, so that's impacting the results as well. Leads to an intriguing scenario as we head to round 3 this weekend back at Angel Stadium.